The morning shift bell rang across mining station Kepler 44-B, its deep sound echoing through the metal corridors. Commander Hannah walked down the main hallway, her black boots making soft sounds on the floor. She was tall for a human woman, with short dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. Her uniform was clean and pressed, but the knife on her belt showed signs of use. The station was huge. Built into an asteroid that was rich with crystals needed for space travel. It had been working for 3 years now, and the different alien races worked together with humans to dig out the valuable rocks. The work was hard and dangerous, but it paid well. Hannah stopped at the main control room. Through the big windows, she could see the mining ships coming and going like busy insects. The ships were small but strong, built to handle the rough work of breaking apart rock and carrying heavy loads. "Good morning, Commander," said a voice behind her. She turned to see June, her second in command. He was a quiet man, with careful eyes and quick hands. He had been an engineer before joining security, and it showed in how he looked at problems. "Morning, June. How did the night shift go?" "All quiet. No problems with the miners or the equipment." The VOR3 team finished the deep dig in Sector 7. They found a new crystal vein. Hannah nodded. The VOR3 were good workers, slow but very careful. They never made mistakes, but they took forever to do anything. Their leader, Veltar, was a tall gray creature with 4 arms and eyes that never blinked. He was smart, but he thought humans were too quick to act and too slow to think. "The morning briefing is in 10 minutes, June said. "All the team leaders will be there. Right, let's go." They walked to the briefing room where the other security officers were already waiting. The room was built to hold different types of beings with different sized chairs and breathing systems. The air smelled like metal and recycled oxygen. Veltar stood at the front of the room, his forearms moving as he set up the display screen. Next to him was Kretok, the Krylon security chief. Kretok looked like a walking tank, covered in thick armor that was part of his body. He was strong enough to break through walls, but he moved like he was underwater. On the other side stood Nixara, the Nixari speed specialist. She was thin and quick, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer. The Nixari were the fastest beings in the galaxy, or so they said. They could run faster than most vehicles and react to danger in split seconds. "Please sit," Veltar said in his slow, careful voice. "We have important matters to discuss." Hannah sat down with her team. There was Mira, the team medic. She was small but tough, with scars on her hands from years of emergency work. Next to her sat Kong, a big man who used to work in the station's factory section. He knew every machine and could fix anything that broke. The last member was Day, the youngest of the group. He was smart and fast, but the aliens thought he was too young to be useful. "The security review is complete," Veltar announced. "The station is well protected, but we must discuss the emergency procedures." The screen showed a map of the station with all the escape routes marked in green. Red dots showed where the emergency sirens were placed. "If there is danger, the sirens will sound," Veltar explained. "You will have 3 seconds to reach safety before the lockdown begins. This is very fast by galactic standards." Kretok made a rumbling sound that meant agreement. 3 seconds is enough time for any trained being to react. "The Krylon method is to move to the nearest safe room and wait for help. Nixari way is better," Nixara said, her voice quick and sharp. "We can cross the entire station in 3 seconds. Speed is life." Veltar's forearms moved in a pattern that meant he was thinking the humans are adequate for most tasks. They are strong enough for heavy work and smart enough for complex jobs. But they lack the special gifts that each of our races possess. Hannah felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her face calm. She had heard this speech before. "Humans have good reflexes," Veltar continued, "but not fast enough for emergency response. They are not as quick as the Nexari, not as strong as the Krylon, and not as careful as the VOR3. This is why the 3-second warning system works well. It gives even the slower races time to respond." "What about weapons training?" Myra asked. Her voice was steady, but Hannah could hear the edge in it. Humans are decent with weapons, Krytok said. But in a real fight, raw speed and strength matter more than training. A human might hit what they aim at, but can they aim fast enough? Can they move quickly enough to avoid being hit? The data shows that humans have the slowest reaction times among the station's security forces, Veltar added. This is not criticism, merely fact. Each race has its strengths and weaknesses. Day shifted in his chair. What kind of threats are we expecting? Pirates, mostly, Nixara answered. They want the crystals, but usually run when they see real security. The dangerous ones are the professionals who come with ships and weapons. The Shadowkin, Krytok said quietly. The room went silent. Everyone had heard stories about the Shadowkin, the galaxy's most feared killers. They appeared without warning, struck without mercy, and left no survivors. No security force had ever successfully fought them off. The Shadowkin are myth, Veltar said. They have not been seen in this sector for years. They're real, Hannah said. It was the first time she had spoken during the briefing, and they're not myths. All eyes turned to her. You have seen them? Veltar asked. No, but I've seen what? They leave behind 3 stations, completely empty. No bodies, no survivors, no trace of how they got in or out. Stories, Nixara said. Humans love their scary stories. Hannah stood up slowly. Maybe. But if they're real, your 3-second warning system won't help anyone. Why not? Krytok asked. Because they don't give warnings. They don't make noise. They don't trip alarms. They just appear and kill everything that moves. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Veltar made a sound like a sigh. This is why humans are not suited for high-level security work. Too much imagination, not enough facts. The facts are simple, Nixara added. No force in the galaxy is fast enough to clear a station before the sirens sound. It's impossible. Hannah looked around the room, meeting each alien's eyes. You're probably right. But something in her voice made June look at her more carefully. He had worked with Hannah for 2 years and he knew that tone. It meant she was thinking about something that the others weren't. The briefing is finished, Veltar announced. Return to your duties. Remember, the 3-second warning system is for your protection. Use it wisely. As the aliens filed out, Hannah's team stayed behind. They waited until the door closed before anyone spoke. They really think we're that slow? Mira asked. They think we're limited, June said. It's like we can only do one thing at a time. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Kong said quietly. Let them think what they want. Day frowned. What do you mean? Hannah walked to the window and looked out at the mining. Ships. He means that sometimes it's better to be underestimated. People don't prepare for threats they don't believe in. You really think the Shadowkin might come here? Mira asked. I think we should be ready for anything, Hannah said. And I think 3 seconds is a very long time. The others looked at each other. They had all heard the tone in her voice now. It was the voice she used when she was planning something. What do you want us to do? June asked. Hannah turned back to them. Learn the station. Every corridor, every room, every shortcut. Learn it like your life depends on it. Because it might, Day said. Because it will, Hannah corrected. But someday, someone is going to test our 3-second warning system. And when they do, I want to be ready to show them what humans can really do. Outside the window, the mining ships continued their work. Unaware that their quiet human security chief was already planning for a war that might never come. But Hannah had learned long ago that the wars you don't prepare for are the ones that kill you. 2 weeks after the security briefing, the morning started like any other. Hannah was in the control room, checking the daily reports. The mining operations were running smoothly, and the crystal production was ahead of schedule. Everything seemed normal. Then the long-range sensors started beeping. Commander called out Technician Rue from his station. He was an older man with gray hair and steady hands. We have a contact on the outer edge of the system. Hannah walked over to look at the screen. A small dot was moving toward the station. But it wasn't following the normal shipping lanes. What kind of ship? Unknown. It's not responding to our signals. No identification beacon, no cargo manifest, nothing. June appeared at Hannah's shoulder. Pirates? Maybe. Or maybe someone who doesn't want to be identified. Hannah pressed the communication button, a station control to all department heads. We have an unidentified ship approaching. All security teams report to stations. The response was immediate. Veltar's voice came through the speakers first. War 3 security team is ready. We are moving to defensive positions. Kreetalk's deep voice followed. Krelon forces are armed and waiting. The ship will not breach our defenses. Nyxara's quick words came last. Nyxari scouts are already moving. We will track their approach. But something felt wrong to Hannah. The ship was moving. Too slowly, taking too much time to reach the station. If they were pirates, they would come in fast and hard, trying to surprise the defenders. This felt different.
Oh.
Rue, can you get a better look at that ship? The technician worked his controls, trying to get a clearer image. Strange, Commander. The ship seems to be shifting somehow. It's like it's not completely solid. Hannah felt ice in her stomach. What do you mean, not solid? The sensors keep losing it, then finding it again. It's like the ship is fading in and out. June moved closer to the screen. I've never seen anything like that. I have, Hannah said quietly. Once, in the reports from the empty stations, the room went silent. Everyone knew what she meant. Get me Station Manager Wu, Hannah ordered. Right. Now, Station Manager Wu was a small, nervous man who preferred dealing with mining schedules rather than security threats. When he arrived in the control room, he was already sweating. Commander, what's the situation? We may have Shadowkin incoming, Hannah said simply. Wu's face went pale. That's impossible. They don't exist. They're just stories. The ship matches the descriptions from the lost stations. Cloaking technology, strange sensor readings, no communication. Act. But this is a mining station. We're not military. We're not a threat to anyone. Hannah looked at him steadily. We have something they want, either the crystals or the station itself. What do we do? Wu asked. You start evacuation procedures? Get all non-essential personnel to the escape pods now? And the essential personnel? Stay and fight. Wu ran from the control room, his voice already on the intercom announcing the evacuation. Hannah turned to June. Get our team together. Full gear. This is what we've been training for. 20 minutes later, the unknown ship attached itself to the station's main docking bay. There was no request for permission, no warning. The ship simply connected and began cutting through the airlock. The station's security forces were in position. The Vor3 had set up careful defensive lines in the main corridors. The Krelin were posted at key choke points, their heavy armor and weapons ready. The Nyxari were scattered throughout the station, ready to move fast and strike quickly. Humans were spread out too, but in a different way. While the aliens formed obvious defensive positions, the humans had taken spots that looked less important. Maintenance tunnels, storage rooms, secondary corridors. This is wrong, Nyxara reported. Over the communication system. They should have tried to talk first. Pirates always try to negotiate. These aren't pirates, Veltar said. But they are not Shadowkin either. Shadowkin do not use ships. Then the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in red shadows. The station's main power had been cut, but the backup systems were still running. How did they do that? Kreetalk asked. The power systems are inside the station. They're already inside, Hannah said into her communicator. All teams, be ready. They're not coming through the main airlock. Impossible, Veltar replied. Are watching all entry points. That's when the screaming started. It came from Section C, where the Vor3 had set up their main defensive line. The sound was cut short, replaced by silence. Veltar report, Hannah called. No answer. Section C team, respond. Still nothing. Nyxara, can you get to Section C? Already moving, the Nyxari replied. A few seconds later, her voice came back. Shaky and scared. They're all dead. All of them. But I don't see any attackers. Fall back to Section B, Hannah ordered. Everyone fall back to prepared positions. But even as she said it, more screams echoed through the station. The Krelon position in Section B went silent. Then the Nyxari scouts in the outer rings stopped responding. What's happening? The voice came through the intercom. Security teams aren't responding. Hannah switched to a private channel that only her team could hear. Mira, report. I'm in the medical bay. Nothing yet, but I can hear something moving in the walls. Kong factory. The section is quiet, too quiet. Machines are still running, but there's no one here. Day, habitat ring is clear. But Commander, the gravity controls are acting strange. Someone is messing with the systems. Hannah thought quickly. The attackers were moving through the station like ghosts, taking out the alien security forces without being seen, but they hadn't found the humans yet. June, where are you? Communication center. I'm trying to get external signals, but something is jamming us. Keep trying. We need to call for help. But even as she said it, Hannah knew help wouldn't come in time. Whatever was hunting through the station was too fast, too deadly. The aliens' careful defenses were useless against an enemy that could appear and disappear at will. She moved through the service tunnels, heading for the main computer core. If she could access the station's internal sensors, maybe she could see what they were dealing with. The tunnels were dark and narrow, designed for maintenance work rather than combat. But they were also hidden, not marked on the main station maps. The aliens knew about them, but they didn't use them. Only the humans bothered to learn every hidden passage. As she crawled through the tunnel, Hannah heard sounds from the main corridors. Footsteps, but not quite right. They were too light, too quick. Sometimes they stopped completely, as if the thing making them had simply vanished. She reached the computer core and plugged in her access device. The screen came to life, showing the station's internal layout. Most of the security cameras were dead, but a few were still working. What she saw made her blood run cold. The attackers were tall and thin, covered in dark clothing that seemed to shift and move. Sometimes they were solid, walking through corridors like normal beings. But sometimes they faded, becoming transparent, walking through walls like they weren't there, and they were fast. Faster than the Nexari, faster than anything she had ever seen. Shadowkin, she whispered. She counted at least 12 of them, moving through the station in a coordinated pattern. They had already eliminated most of the alien security forces, and now they were searching for the remaining personnel. One of them stopped in front of a camera and looked directly at it. The creature's face was hidden behind a dark mask, but she could see its eyes. They were bright red and completely without mercy. The creature raised one hand, and the camera went dead. Hannah switched to her team's private channel. All units, this is Commander. We have confirmed Shadowkin on the station. 12 contacts, moving in coordinated pattern. They can phase through solid matter and move faster than our sensors can track. Orders? June asked. Hannah looked at the remaining camera feeds. The Shadowkin were systematically searching every room, every corridor. They would find the humans eventually. We do what we trained for, she said. We give them a fight they're not expecting. Against Shadowkin, Mira asked. Commander, no one has ever survived a Shadowkin attack. That's because no one has ever been ready for them, Hannah replied. But we have something they don't expect. What? We know this station better than they do? And we don't fight like the other races. She switched the communication to include Station Manager, Wu. Manager, how long until the evacuation is complete? 20 minutes, maybe 30. The escape pods are loading now. You don't have 30 minutes? The Shadowkin will find the evacuation areas soon. What do we do? Hannah looked at the remaining camera feeds. The Shadowkin were moving closer to the populated sections of the station. Soon they would find the frightened miners and technicians trying to escape. We buy you time, she said. All human security personnel switched to Protocol 7. There was a pause. Protocol 7, Wu asked. What is Protocol 7? Something the aliens don't know about, Hannah said. Something we hoped we'd never have to use. She turned off the communication and spoke to her team. Remember your training. Remember what we practiced? The aliens think we're too slow, too weak, too limited. Time to prove them wrong, June said. Not time to show them what humans really are, Hannah agreed. In the darkness of the station, the Shadowkin continued their hunt. They had never failed to eliminate all life on a target. They were the galaxy's perfect killers. Unstoppable and invisible. But they had never hunted humans, were ready for them. And they had never encountered Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was not written in any manual, was not taught in any academy. It was something that Hannah had learned in the worst places in the galaxy, where humans had to survive against impossible odds. The rule was simple. When facing an enemy that was faster, stronger, and more dangerous than you had to become something they didn't expect. You had to stop being human and start being a hunter. Hannah moved through the maintenance tunnels with complete silence. Every step was planned, every movement controlled. She had practiced this route dozens of times in the past 2 weeks, until she could walk it in total darkness without making a sound. The Shadowkin were good at hunting, but they hunted like predators. They expected their prey to run, to hide, to make mistakes. They didn't expect their prey to hunt them back. She reached the reactor section and carefully opened the access panel. The reactor was the heart of the station, providing power to all the major systems. It was also the most dangerous place on the station, with radiation levels that could kill most beings in minutes. But humans had always been good at surviving dangerous places. She heard footsteps in the corridor outside, light, quick steps, that seemed to float rather than walk. A Shadowkin was coming. Hannah waited behind the reactor housing, her knife ready. The blade was plain steel, nothing special, but it was sharp, and she knew how to use it. The aliens preferred energy weapons and high-tech equipment, but sometimes the old ways were better. The footsteps stopped. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the Shadowkin appeared, fading through the wall like smoke becoming solid. The creature was tall and thin, covered in dark material that seemed to absorb light. Its face was hidden behind a mask, but red eyes glowed in the darkness. It moved with perfect grace, every step planned and controlled. But it was looking in the wrong direction. Hannah struck from behind, her knife finding the gap between the creature's neck and shoulder. The blade went deep, and the Shadowkin made a sound like air escaping from a broken seal. It tried to turn, tried to phase through matter to escape, but the wound was too deep. Dark blood flowed from the cut, and the creature collapsed to the floor. Hannah knelt beside it and checked for weapons. The Shadowkin carried curved blades that looked like they were made from some kind of crystal. They were beautiful and deadly, but they were also heavy and designed for a different fighting style. She took the creature's communication device and listened to the voices speaking in a language she didn't understand. But she could hear the tone, and it sounded like they were coordinating their search. One down, she whispered into her team communicator. "Copy that," June replied. "I'm in position at the communication center. The jamming device is right where you said it would be." June had found the Shadowkin signal blocker in the main communication room. It was a small device, but it was keeping the station from calling for help. The aliens would have tried to disable it carefully, studying it. First, to understand how it worked, June simply destroyed it with a hammer. The communication systems came back online instantly. Emergency signals began broadcasting automatically, calling for help from any ship in the area. It would take hours for help to arrive, but at least someone would know what had happened. "Nice work," Hannah said. "Now get to your next position." Already moving. Meanwhile, Mira had turned the medical bay into something that looked like a field hospital. Injured miners and technicians were lying on beds, some unconscious, others moaning in pain. Medical equipment beeped and hummed, and the smell of antiseptic filled the air. It looked like a place where wounded people came to get better. But it was actually a trap. 2 Shadowkin entered the medical bay, moving like ghosts through the walls. They expected to find helpless victims, easy targets that couldn't fight back. Instead, they found that the medical equipment had been modified. The machines that were supposed to help people were now weapons. Laser scalpels became cutting beams. Injection devices became poison darts. Even the beds were rigged with electrical charges. The first Shadowkin stepped on what looked like a normal floor tile. The tile collapsed, and the creature fell into a pit filled with surgical spikes. The second one tried to phase through a wall, but Mira had covered the walls with a thin layer of metal that conducted electricity. When the creature tried to become solid again, it found itself being electrocuted. Medical bay secure, Mira reported. 2 targets down. Good watch for more. In the factory section, Kang was having his own kind of fun. The Shadowkin had entered the manufacturing area expecting to find hiding workers. Instead, they found that the assembly lines had been turned into a maze of deadly traps. Kong knew every machine in the factory, every conveyor belt, every robotic arm. He had spent years fixing them, improving them, making them work better. He was using them to kill. The first Shadowkin tried to phase through a cutting machine and found that the laser was already activated. The creature materialized right in the path of the beam and was cut in half. The second one tried to use its speed to run through the factory floor. But Kang had reprogrammed the robotic arms to move in patterns that looked random but were actually designed to catch fast-moving targets. The creature ran straight into a crushing press that was supposed to shape metal plates. Instead, it shaped the Shadowkin into something that wouldn't be getting up again. Factory section clear, Kong reported. 3 targets down. Copy that. Day was in the habitat ring, the part of the station where people lived. The Shadowkin had sent 4 of their number to search the residential areas, expecting to find terrified families hiding in their rooms. But Day had evacuated everyone hours ago, as soon as the unknown ship had appeared on the sensors. The habitat ring was empty except for him and the environmental controls, and Day was very good with environmental controls. The first Shadowkin entered a residential section that looked normal, but Day had increased the gravity in that area too. 5 times normal, creature suddenly weighed 5 times more than it expected, and it crashed to the floor. It's unable to move. The second one tried to phase through the floor and found itself materializing in a section where Day had removed all the air. The creature began suffocating immediately. The third and fourth Shadowkin tried to work together, but Day had other ideas. He activated the fire suppression system, but instead of using foam or gas, he had filled it with liquid nitrogen. The temperature in the corridor dropped to nearly absolute zero in seconds. The Shadowkin were fast, but they weren't fast enough to escape being frozen solid. Habitat ring secure, Day reported. 4 targets down. Excellent work. Hannah looked at the station's internal sensors. In less than 20 minutes, her team had eliminated 9 of the 12 Shadowkin. The creatures that had never been successfully resisted were being hunted down like animals. But the remaining 3 were different. They were moving together now, and they had stopped trying to search the station randomly. They were heading for the control center, where Station Manager Wu was trying to coordinate the evacuation. All units converge on the control center, Hannah ordered. The remaining targets are going for the command staff. On our way, June replied. Moving now, Myra confirmed. En route, Kong added. Already here, Day said. Hannah smiled. Fast, but more importantly, they were smart. They had anticipated where the Shadowkin would go, and had positioned themselves accordingly. The 3 remaining Shadowkin entered the control center expecting to find frightened technicians and helpless administrators. Instead, they found 5 humans who had been waiting for them. The lead Shadowkin was larger than the others, with more elaborate markings on its dark clothing. This was probably their leader, the one who had planned the attack on the station. It looked around the control center and saw the humans standing calmly in a circle around the room. For the first time since the attack began, the Shadowkin seemed confused. You are not afraid, the leader said. Its voice was cold and mechanical, like metal scraping on metal. Nohana replied. We're not. You cannot defeat us, your Shadowkin. We are the darkness between stars. We are death itself. You're the ones who attacked the other stations, Hannah said. The ones who killed all those people. Yes, and now we will kill you. I don't think so. The Shadowkin leader tilted its head. You are only human. You are weak. You are slow. You are nothing. Hannah looked at her team. They were all in position. All ready. They had practiced this moment, planned for it, prepared for it. You're right, she said. We are only human. The Shadowkin leader raised its crystal blade, ready to strike. But that's enough, Hannah finished. The leader lunged forward, moving faster than the eye could follow. But Hannah was no longer where she had been standing. She was already moving, already attacking, already doing what humans did best. She was adapting. The fight lasted exactly 37 seconds. When it was over, 3 more Shadowkin lay dead on the floor of the control center. Station Manager Wu stared at the bodies in shock. How? How did you do that? Hannah cleaned her knife on the leader's clothing. We did what we had to do, but they're Shadowkin. No one has ever killed a Shadowkin. No one ever tried the right way, June said. What way is that? The human way. Mira replied. The evacuation was complete 20 minutes later. The escape pods launched safely, carrying all the non-essential person. The Shadowkin ship that was attached to the station suddenly came alive with activity. Inside its dark hull, more creatures were awakening from some kind of sleep. These were not the advanced team that had been killed. These were the real invasion. Force. Death Whisper stood in the center of the ship's command room. He was the largest Shadowkin anyone had ever seen, covered in black armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Red symbols glowed on his chest, marking him as a hunt master, one of the deadliest beings in the galaxy. He had been sleeping during the initial assault, expecting his advanced team to clear the station quickly and quietly.
Shadowkin attacks.
Followed the same pattern. The advanced team would eliminate all resistance, then signal for the main force to take control. But the signal had never come. Report, Death Whisper commanded. His voice was like broken glass mixed with ice. The advanced team is not responding, replied one of his lieutenants. All communication has stopped. Show me the station. The ship's sensors displayed a map of the mining station. 12 red dots showed where the advanced team had last been detected. All 12 dots were now dark. Death Whisper stared at the display for a long moment. In 50 years of leading Shadowkin attacks, he had never lost an entire advanced team. It was impossible. Shadowkin were the perfect killers, faster than thought, harder to catch than smoke. What resistance did they encounter? He asked. Standard galactic security forces. Vorthari, Krelon, Nixari, and humans. Humans. Death Whisper spoke the word like it tasted bad. Weak, slow, limited creatures. They could not have defeated my hunters. The initial reports showed that the alien security forces were eliminated quickly, the lieutenant continued. The humans were scattered throughout the station in small numbers. Then how are they dead? The lieutenant had no answer. Death Whisper activated his personal communication device and tried to contact the advanced team leaders. There was no response. From any of them, prepare the main assault force, he ordered. We will take the station ourselves, sir. Perhaps we should study the situation first. Understand what happened to the advanced team. Death Whisper turned his red eyes on the lieutenant. I know what happened. The advanced team became careless. They underestimated their prey. It will not happen again. The main assault force consisted of 30 Shadowkin warriors, each one a veteran of dozens of successful attacks. They were armed with the best weapons, trained in the deadliest techniques, led by Death Whisper himself. They moved through the station like a dark tide, phasing through walls and appearing in corridors without warning. Something was wrong. The station was too quiet, too empty. Where are the bodies? Asked one of the warriors. The advanced team should have left corpses. Perhaps they threw them into space, Death Whisper replied. But he was beginning to feel something he had not felt in many years. Uncertainty. Reached the control center, where the advanced team should have been waiting. Instead, they found signs of a fierce battle. Scorch marks on the walls, damaged equipment, and dark stains on the floor that might have been blood. But whose blood? Search the area, Death Whisper commanded. Find traces of the advanced team. The warriors spread out, examining every corner of the control center. What they found made them all pause. Mixed in with the dark stains were pieces of familiar armor and weapons. Shadowkin armor and weapons. It's impossible, whispered one of the warriors. How could humans defeat Shadowkin? Death Whisper knelt and picked up a fragment of crystal blade. It was broken cleanly, as if cut by something incredibly sharp. But humans? didn't have weapons that could cut Shadowkin crystal. Perhaps it was not the humans, suggested another warrior. Perhaps there were other forces here, hidden defenders. Show me the security recordings, Death Whisper ordered. The station's computer systems were still functioning, and they quickly accessed the internal cameras. Most of the recordings from the battle had been erased or damaged, but a few fragments remained. What they saw defied all logic. The recordings showed humans moving through the station with impossible coordination. They seemed to know exactly where the Shadowkin would appear, exactly how to counter their attacks, exactly when to strike. But more disturbing was how the humans fought. They didn't use advanced weapons or superior technology. They used simple tools, basic equipment, and the station itself as a weapon. In one recording, a human female turned medical equipment into deadly traps. In another, a human male used industrial machinery to crush two Shadowkin warriors. A young human had somehow used the station's environmental systems to freeze for Shadowkin solid. This cannot be real, said one of the warriors. Humans are too slow, too weak. They cannot move like this. Death Whisper watched the recordings again and again. Each time, he saw the same thing. Humans fighting with a speed and skill that should have been impossible for their species. There is something we do not understand about these creatures, he said finally. What do you mean? Look at how they move. Look at how they coordinate. They are not fighting like separate individuals. They are fighting like parts of a single organism. The warriors watched the recordings more carefully. Death Whisper was right. The humans seemed to know what each other was doing without any visible communication. When one human attacked from the front, another would already be in position to strike from behind. When one set a trap, the others would drive the Shadowkin right into it. How is this possible? Asked a warrior. I do not know, Death Whisper admitted, but it explains how they defeated the advanced team. What are your orders? Death Whisper thought for a moment. The Shadowkin had rules about fighting. They preferred quick, clean victories. When faced with unexpected resistance, the usual response was to withdraw and find easier prey. But Death Whisper had never lost an entire advanced team before. His reputation among the Shadowkin was built on perfect success. If word spread that humans had defeated his forces, his authority would be questioned. We continue the assault, he decided. But we change our tactics. No more individual hunting. We move as a group. We overwhelm them with numbers. And if that fails, Death Whisper's eyes glowed brighter, then we destroy the entire station. If we cannot claim it, no one can have it. He activated a hidden device on his armor. It was a bomb, powerful enough to tear the mining station apart. The device was a last resort, meant to be used only if a mission went completely wrong. The timer for 1 hour, he ordered. If we have not eliminated all resistance by then, we evacuate and let the bomb finish our work. The warriors nodded and began preparing for the final assault. They moved through the station more carefully now, watching for traps, staying together for mutual support, but they still didn't understand what they were really facing. Somewhere, in the station's service tunnels, Hannah listened to the Shadowkin communications through the device she had taken from the first warrior she had killed. She couldn't understand their language, but she could hear the tone of their voices. They were scared. June, are you monitoring their signals? Yes, Commander. I count 30 new contacts plus one that seems to be their leader. 31 total. It's a lot. More than we've ever faced before, Mira added through the communication system. But not more than we can handle, Kong said confidently. Day's voice came through next. Commander, I'm detecting some kind of energy buildup on their ship. It looks like a bomb. Hannah felt her blood run cold. How big? Big enough to destroy the station. Maybe the whole asteroid. How long do we have? Based on the energy patterns, maybe an hour? Hannah closed her eyes and thought quickly. 31 Shadowkin warriors, led by what was probably their best fighter. And if they couldn't win, they would blow up the station and everyone on it. Plan, she said into her communicator. We don't just have to win, we have to win fast. What do you have in mind? June asked. Something that will prove to these creatures that they picked the wrong species to hunt. She began moving through the service tunnels again, heading for a new position. Behind her, she could hear the Shadowkin moving through the main corridors. Searching for her and her team, they thought they were the hunters. They thought they were the predators, but they were about to learn that when humans were threatened, when their backs were against the wall, when everything they cared about was in danger, they became something else entirely. They became the thing that even monsters feared. Death Whisper led his warriors deeper into the station, following the traces of human presence. He was confident that 31 Shadowkin could overwhelm 5 humans, no matter how cleverly they fought. He was about to discover how wrong he was. In the darkness of the station, the real hunt was about to begin.
Ow.
And this time, the humans weren't going to be the prey. The bomb was counting down. 57 minutes and 30 seconds until the entire mining station would be torn apart in a ball of fire and twisted metal.
Ow.
Death Whisper had made his choice. If the Shadowkin couldn't claim the station, they would destroy it. Hannah crouched in the main engineering section, studying the station's power grid on a portable screen. The bomb was on the Shadowkin ship, but she had an idea. If she could overload the station's main reactor at the exact right moment, the explosion might redirect the bomb's energy away from the inhabited areas. It was a desperate plan, but it might save the escape pods that were still launching from the far side of the station. June, what's your status? He whispered into her communicator. I'm in the central hub. I can see the Shadowkin moving through the main corridors. There. Staying together now, moving as one group. How many? All of them. 31 contacts, including the big one. Hannah nodded. The Shadowkin had learned from their mistakes. No more splitting up. No more individual hunting. They were using their numbers to overwhelm any resistance. But that also meant they were all in one place. Mira, report. I've rigged every piece of equipment I can find. If they come through here, they're going to have a very bad day. Kong factory section is ready. I've turned this place into a death trap. The whole assembly line is one big weapon now. Day habitat ring is set. I've got control of gravity, atmosphere, temperature, everything. Just tell me where you want them and how you want them cooked. Hannah looked at the station map on her screen. The Shadowkin were moving methodically through each section, searching for the remaining humans. They had learned to be careful, checking for traps, watching for ambushes, but they were still thinking like hunters. They expected their prey to run and hide. New plan, Hannah said. We're not going to wait for them to find us. We're going to bring them to where we want them. Where's that? June asked. The central hub. All of them, all at once. There was silence on the communication channel for a moment. Commander Mira said carefully, That's 31 Shadowkin in one place. Even if we surprise them, the odds are not good. The odds were never good, Hannah replied. Got it. We have something they don't expect. What's that? Each other. Hannah began moving through the service tunnels toward the central hub. It was the heart of the station, where all the major systems connected. Power, communications, life support, everything ran through the central hub. It was also the most dangerous place to fight. If the wrong systems got damaged, the entire station could lose power or air or gravity. But it was also the place where a small force could do the most damage to a larger one. June, I need you to start a general evacuation alarm. Make it loud. Copy that. The evacuation siren began wailing throughout the station. It was the same 3-second warning system that Veltar had talked about in the briefing weeks ago. The system that was supposed to give everyone time to reach safety. But Hannah wasn't using it to warn people. She was using it to call the Shadowkin.
It's all.
Units sound off every 30 seconds, she ordered. Let them track our voices. Let them think they're hunting us. Understood, June replied. He was already moving toward the central hub through a different route. Myra said. She abandoned the medical bay and began making her way through the station's lower levels. On my way, Kong confirmed. He shut down the factory section and headed for the rendezvous point. Moving now, Day added. He left the habitat ring and started through the maintenance shafts. The Shadowkin heard the evacuation alarm and the human voices on the communication system. To them, it sounded like panic. It sounded like their prey was finally breaking down, running in fear. Death Whisper smiled behind his mask. They are fleeing to the central hub. Corner them there. His warriors moved faster now, converging on the central hub from multiple directions. They expected to find terrified humans making a last desperate stand. Instead, they found something that looked like chaos. The central hub was a large circular room with a high ceiling and multiple levels connected by stairs and walkways. Computer. Terminals lined the walls, monitoring every system on the station. Normally, it was a quiet, organized place where technicians worked to keep everything running smoothly. Now it looked like a war zone. Equipment was scattered everywhere. Sparks flew from damaged terminals. Warning lights flashed in red and orange. The evacuation siren continued to wail, adding to the confusion. And in the middle of it all, 5 humans were running around like they had lost their minds. June was at one terminal, frantically pressing buttons and shouting about system failures. Mira was at another station, calling out medical emergencies that didn't exist. Kong was trying to restart machinery that didn't need restarting. Day was arguing with the computer about artificial gravity settings, and Hannah was in the center, spinning around and yelling orders that made no sense. "The power couplings are failing," she shouted. "We need to reroute everything through the backup systems. I can't get the medical scanners online." Mira called back. "The whole network is crashing. The factory systems are overloading," Kong added. "We're going to lose everything." To the Shadowkin, it looked like the humans had finally panicked. They were running around without any plan, making noise, drawing attention to themselves. They were acting exactly like prey should act when cornered. Death Whisper and his warriors entered the central hub from 5 different entrances. They surrounded the humans completely, cutting off all escape routes. Finally, Death Whisper said. His voice echoed in the large room. "The hunt is over." The humans stopped running around and looked at the Shadowkin with wide, frightened eyes. They huddled together in the center of the room, surrounded by 31 of the galaxy's deadliest killers. "You have caused us much trouble," Death Whisper continued. "But now you will pay for the deaths of my warriors." "Please," Hannah said, her voice shaking. "Don't kill us. We surrender." "There is no surrender for those who kill Shadowkin." Death Whisper raised his crystal blade. Round the room, his warriors did the same. 31 weapons gleamed in the flashing emergency lights. "You fought well for humans," Death Whisper admitted. "But you were always going to lose. You're too slow, too weak, too limited." "You're right," Hannah said quietly. "We are only human, yes, and now you die." Death Whisper lunged forward, his blade cutting through the air toward Hannah's throat. The room, his warriors attacked at the same moment, a coordinated strike designed to kill all 5 humans instantly. But the humans were no longer where they had been standing. In the split second between Death Whisper's words and his attack, all 5 humans moved. Not running away, not trying to escape, but moving to exact positions around the room. Positions they had planned for weeks. Positions they had practiced until they could reach them with their eyes closed. June's hand hit a switch that shut off all the lights in the central hub. The room plunged into complete darkness. Mira activated a medical gas dispenser that filled the air with a sleeping agent that affected Shadowkin nervous systems, but not human ones. Kong started the factories. Emergency lockdown procedure. Sealing all the entrances to the central hub, Day reversed the artificial gravity in the room, sending everything and everyone floating toward the ceiling, and Hannah activated the electromagnetic pulse generator that she had been pretending to fix, the EMP. Blast destroyed every piece of electronic equipment in the room, including the Shadowkins. Phase-shifting technology and their communication devices. Suddenly, the galaxy's most feared killers found themselves floating helplessly in complete darkness, slowly falling asleep from the gas, unable to use their special abilities, and trapped in a room with 5 humans who could see perfectly in the dark because they had been preparing for this moment for weeks. "Light amplification visors activated," Hannah said calmly. "Begin Operation Cleanup." The massacre that followed lasted exactly 2 minutes and 17 seconds, when the emergency lighting came back on. 31 Shadowkin lay dead in the central hub. The humans stood among the bodies, breathing hard but uninjured. Hub secured, Hannah reported. All targets eliminated. But they weren't finished yet. The bomb was still counting down on the Shadowkin ship. 15 minutes left, Day reported, checking his chronometer. Time to go defuse a bomb, Hannah said. They ran toward the docking bay where the Shadowkin ship was attached. Behind them, the evacuation siren finally went silent. The station was theirs again. But they had 15 minutes to make sure it stayed. That way, the final challenge was waiting for them on the enemy ship, and this time, there would be no room for mistakes. 14 minutes, 37 seconds. Hannah ran through the connecting tunnel between the mining station and the Shadowkin ship. Her team was right behind her, their footsteps echoing in the metal corridor. The bomb was somewhere inside the alien vessel, counting down to an explosion that would destroy everything. The Shadowkin ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls seemed to absorb light, making everything dark and difficult to see. Strange symbols glowed faintly along the corridors, and the air felt thick and cold. Split up, Hannah ordered. Find that bomb. We have less than 15 minutes. 8. Do we look? June asked. Anywhere that looks important. Command center, engine room, anywhere they would put something they didn't want us to find. The team scattered through the ship. Mira went toward what looked like a medical area. Kong headed for the engine section. Day found a room full of computers. In communication equipment, June went with Hannah toward the command center. The ship was eerily quiet. No crew, no guards, no defenses. The Shadowkin had been so confident that they would win, they hadn't bothered to leave anyone behind to protect their ship. Hannah and June reached the command center. It was a large room with a high ceiling and walls covered in displays showing maps of the galaxy. Red dots marked places where the Shadowkin had attacked. There were hundreds of them. Look at all those dots, June whispered. How many places have they destroyed? Too many, Hannah replied. But not anymore. She found the main computer and began searching through the ship's systems. The language was alien, but some things were universal. Power levels, system status, navigation data, and there, buried in the system logs, she found what she was looking for. Our bomb located, she announced. Into her communicator. It's in the power core, central engine room. I'm in the engine room, Kong replied immediately. I can see it. It's big. How big? Yeah, big enough to crack this asteroid in half. Maybe big enough to destroy anything within 1,000 kilometers. Hannah felt her blood run cold. The escape. Pods from the station were still out there, carrying the miners and technicians to safety. They weren't far enough away yet. Can you disarm it? There was a pause. Commander, this isn't like any bomb I've ever seen. The technology is completely alien. I don't even know where to start. 12 minutes and 15 seconds? Day, what's your status? I'm in their communication center. I can see the bomb's control. System from here. It's connected to everything on the ship. Can you stop it? Maybe. But Commander, if I make a mistake, it might set the bomb off early. And if you do nothing, it definitely goes off in 12 minutes, Hannah thought quickly. The bomb was too advanced for them to disarm normally. But maybe they didn't need to disarm it. Maybe they needed to redirect it. New plan, she said. We can't stop the bomb, but maybe we can change where it explodes. What do you mean, Mira asked. We detach the ship from the station and let it drift away? When the bomb goes off, it only destroys the ship, not the station. How do we detach the ship? June asked. Hannah looked at the command center's controls. The docking clamps are controlled from here. I can release them. But then we'll be on a ship with a bomb, Day pointed out. Not if we're fast enough. 11 minutes and 8 seconds. Hannah began working on the ship's controls. The docking system was complex, but she had learned to read alien technology during her years in space. Every race built their machines differently, but they all followed basic principles. Docking clamps disengaging, she announced. We have maybe 2 minutes before the ship drifts too far for us to jump back to the station. I'm heading for the airlock, Mira reported. Same here, Kong added. Wait, Day said suddenly. Commander, I found something in the communication logs. This isn't the only Shadowkin ship. Hannah stopped working and looked at him. What do you mean? There's a whole fleet of them. Dozens of ships, maybe hundreds. They're spread across this part of the galaxy, attacking mining stations and colonies. Where are they now? Day worked frantically at the alien computer. According to this, they're all heading here. This was supposed to be their main base of operations. How long until they arrive? 6 hours, maybe less. Hannah felt the weight of the discovery. Even if they survived the bomb, even if they saved the mining station, more Shadowkin would come. And next time, they would know that humans were dangerous. 10 minutes and 12 seconds. Commander, we need to go, June urged. The ship is starting to drift. But Hannah was looking at the communication equipment with new eyes. An idea was forming. Dangerous and desperate, but it might work. What if we don't just escape? She said slowly. What do you mean? What if we use their own communication system to send a message to the other Shadowkin ships? What kind of message? Hannah smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found new prey. The kind that will make them think twice about attacking human colonies. She began working on the communication system, her fingers flying over the alien controls. The others watched in amazement as she somehow figured out how to operate equipment. She had never seen before. What are you doing? Mira asked. I'm recording everything that happened here. The security footage, the battle records, the casualty reports. Everything that shows how 43 Shadowkin warriors were killed by 5 humans. And then I'm going to broadcast it to every Shadowkin ship in the galaxy. 8 minutes and 43 seconds. Commander Kong said urgently, the ship is drifting faster. We need to leave now. Almost finished, Hannah replied. She was uploading the station's security recordings to the Shadowkin communication network. The footage showed the entire battle. From the moment the first Shadowkin entered the station to the final massacre in the central hub. There, she said finally. Message sent to all Shadowkin vessels. They'll know what happened here. That stop them from attacking other places? Day asked. Maybe, or maybe it will just make them more careful. Either way, we need to go, June said. 6 minutes left. They ran through the ship toward the airlock that connected to the mining station. The Shadowkin vessel was drifting away from the station now, slowly but steadily. The gap between the two airlocks was getting wider. 5 minutes and 17 seconds. Kana ordered. One by one, they leaped across the gap between the ships. Mira went first, then Kang, then Day. June jumped next, his arms windmilling. As he barely made it to the station's airlock, Hannah was last. She looked back at the Shadowkin ship, now 50 meters away and still drifting. She could see the bomb through the ship's transparent sections. Dark device covered in pulsing red lights. For minutes and 8 seconds, she jumped. For a moment, she was floating in space between the two vessels. The station seemed impossibly far away, the alien ship falling behind her. Then June's strong hands grabbed her arms and pulled her into the airlock. Airlock sealed, he reported. We're clear.
Ow.
They ran through the station toward the control center. Behind them, the Shadowkin. Ship continued to drift away, carrying its deadly cargo into empty space. 3 minutes and 12 seconds. All personnel, this is Commander Hannah, she announced over the station's communication system. Brace for shockwave. The threat has been neutralized, but there will be an explosion in approximately 3 minutes. In the control center, they watched the Shadowkin ship on the external cameras. It was now almost a kilometer away, a dark shape against the stars. 2 minutes and 4 seconds. Do you think the other Shadowkin will get the message? Mira asked. They'll get it? Hannah replied. The question is whether they'll believe it. What do you think they'll do? Some of them will come looking for revenge. Some of them will decide that humans are too dangerous to hunt. And some of them will spread the word that the galaxy's perfect killers aren't so perfect anymore. 1 minute and 15 seconds. Commander Day said quietly. The escape pods are reporting all clear. Everyone made it to safety. Good, that's what matters. 37 seconds. They watched the screens in silence. The Shadowkin ship was now just a tiny dot in the distance. But they could still track it on the long-range sensors. 21 seconds. You know, June said conversationally, Veltar was right about one thing. What's that? 3 seconds really is a long time. Hannah smiled. Long enough. 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The explosion was visible. Even at that distance, a brief star that flared to life and then faded away. The shockwave reached the station a few seconds later, a gentle tremor that rattled the coffee cups but did no damage. Threat eliminated, Hannah announced. All systems. Normal. Resume standard operations. The station's emergency sirens sounded the all-clear signal. After hours of battle and terror, the familiar sound meant that life could return to normal, but nothing would ever be quite the same. 6 hours later, the first rescue ships arrived from the nearest human colony. They found the mining station, intact and operational, with a very interesting story to tell. The security recordings were copied and sent to every human military base in the sector. Within days, they had spread throughout human space and beyond. The galaxy learned that humans weren't just good workers and decent fighters. They were something much more dangerous when properly motivated. They were survivors who could adapt to any threat, no matter how deadly. They were hunters who could become the hunted when necessary. And they were killers who could eliminate the galaxy's most feared assassins without breaking a sweat. Commander Hannah returned to her duties, her team scattered to their various posts. 2 outside observers. Nothing had changed. The humans continued their work, quiet and efficient as always. But now everyone knew the truth. The galaxy had spent years underestimating humans, thinking they were too slow, too weak, too limited to be truly dangerous. The Shadowkin had learned better, and their message was spreading to every corner of known space. When humans say they can do something in 3 seconds, you had better believe them. Because 3 seconds, as it turned out, was more than enough time for humans to prove that they were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The siren went silent. The station hummed with quiet activity, and somewhere in the depths of space, other predators were learning to fear the species they had once dismissed. The age of underestimating humanity was over,